the target of an unhappy activist shareholder, Browning West, which essentially won that battle with Gildan. Joining us now from Chicago is David Swartz, Senior Equity Analyst of Consumer and Equity Research at Morningstar. David, thanks a lot for joining us. What's your take on the Gildan numbers? The market clearly likes them.
Yeah, it was a pretty good quarter. The activewear business, which is the main segment for Gildan, had 11% sales growth, which is strong. Gildan is benefiting from weakness at some of its competition in the printwear business. A couple of its competitors actually dropped out of the industry last year, and Gildan has benefited from that. They've also benefited from a resurgence a little bit in demand. It's still maybe not at a peak level, but it has improved. We have seen some better results from apparel companies in the fourth quarter, and that benefited Gildan.
Interesting to hear a couple of competitors dropped out of the industry. Which are those, and how much market share became available to Gildan as a result?
Well, one is a company which is called Delta Apparel, which went bankrupt last summer. Delta was, I think, a relatively small competitor, but now it's out of the market completely. Another one is Fruit of the Loom, which is probably a bigger competitor. Fruit of the Loom merchandise is still being sold into the channel, but in lower volumes than before. And it appears that Fruit of the Loom is pulling out of the market for the most part to concentrate on its branded business instead. And so Gildan has gained share. The shares that Gildan has, it's hard to actually quantify them because it depends on the market. And unfortunately, there's very little good data for this industry. But I think in basic printwear, Gildan's market share is probably 80% or more in some cases.
Okay, this company, as we noted in our introduction, was the subject of a battle with an unhappy shareholder, Browning West. That unhappy shareholder prevailed. Is this company being better managed or better governed as a result?
I think that Gildan was on the right track anyway. I don't think that the management change really made much difference, and that's what I told people a year ago when that whole controversy was going on, because the current and former and then current again CEO, Glenn Chamandy, has been following the same plan for years, and this plan was going to be followed by the CEO who turned out to be a very temporary CEO as well. So despite the changes in management, the strategy of Gildan has not really changed itself. And so I think that Gildan was on track to perform better this year anyway, and going into 2025.
Okay. What is your outlook for the next year? What kind of earnings growth and sales growth can this company post?
I think the sales growth is going to be in the mid-single digits, maybe like 5 or 6% or so, and then earnings growth, I think we could see 10% or so increase in EPS. The margins, I think, are going to be able to hold. I think they will hold from what we saw in 2024, and Gildan's margins have definitely improved over the years. I think that this improvement in margins can be sustained because Gildan has invested heavily in its production, which is really where its advantage lies. And so it is the low-cost producer, and so that has allowed it to operate profitably at lower prices than competitors can offer. And I think that can hold. And so I think Gildan is looking at a good 2025. In the long term, this is still an industry that is competitive. There isn't a lot of advantage that can be gained in terms of brand, but I think in cost, Gildan definitely has an advantage that it can hold.
And speaking of cost, how much of a wild card are cotton prices? It's a major consumer and user of cotton, obviously.
Gildan has definitely benefited from the lower prices for cotton. They've come down considerably from where they were 2 or 3 years ago when they really spiked, like a lot of other raw materials costs. And so that has benefited Gildan's gross margin, which has gone over 30% now, which is higher than historically Gildan has been able to achieve. Gildan's also benefited from lower transportation and other costs as well, and that is aiding the gross margin. That's also helping competitors like Hanesbrands, for example, which has also been reporting strong gross margins.
David, thank you for your insight. As always, look forward to speaking to you again before too long. David.